Hello, Holly Schmidt here with Magnolia Homes and Land. I got my girl Victoria with me today in the podcast room. So, lots of excitement over this weekend. We had Marion County Sheriff's Office involved in one of our transactions, and it was,
Excitement, yes. That's
yes.
a word for it.
Yeah. We were playing like FBI agents trying to figure out some things. So, we're really excited to share that with you. We're going to go back to kind of the beginning of the transaction and, walk through the foreclosure process and some of the things
Mhm.
that Victoria was able to do within the transaction. And then we're going to get down into the nitty gritty. Thanks for being here, Victoria.
Thank you for having me, Holly.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, this is an interesting one. So it's foreclosure property. It was perfect property for this buyer because it was close to her family. This is what she's been waiting for. So already the excitement and the anticipation to purchase this property is at an all-time high. And so we go take a look at the property. We went to go make an offer. Keep in mind, this is a foreclosure property. It was only on the market for 7 days when we made this offer. And it came back to us from the asset manager that there was multiple offers. So we had to kind of re-strategize our approach for this offer to make sure that, first of all, she wasn't going to be paying too much for the property,
Correct.
but also that she would win in this bidding war
Right.
so that she could have the house next to her family. So with the multiple offer situation, we did increase our purchase price. And a couple of days later we did find out that we won the bidding war. So it was just
Yay.
like,
Yay.
yay, so exciting for her to finally
And not for nothing, as a realtor, that's like a dub.
yeah,
Like,
it
right?
is.
We're feeling like I won, I beat
Yes.
them, I presented the best offer ultimately
Yeah.
because here we are, right?
Yeah.
Offer accepted.
Absolutely.
Great job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, and so, we go through the normal situation of purchasing a house. We have your inspections and all that happens. There were a couple of repairs that needed to be done. But with it also being a foreclosure, there's not really a whole lot of negotiation or wiggle room when it comes to repairs or credits or price changes. You're dealing with a bank, so it's a little bit more of a tough situation.
And this asset manager was tight. They
Yeah,
weren't moving.
they were not budging at all. I kept trying and trying because, ultimately the house needed a new roof. Okay, so we had a couple of issues there. We had a couple of electrical problems, and a plumbing issue too. Not huge, but the sink was leaking. But
And the air conditioner. You had an
yeah,
air conditioning
we
problem.
had an air conditioning problem as well.
Yep.
So, we tried to get those repairs. The
Mama, I
major ones.
tried.
Yeah, exactly. But they came back and no.
Hard pressed.
I'm like, okay, well, let's see how we can try a different way and
Right.
maybe reduce the purchase price. We got a roofing quote.
And we tried a couple of different, Victoria and I talked a lot throughout the
Mhm.
transaction and tried a couple of different strategies, from the perspective of non-insurability,
Yeah.
with the new roof. We had
Yep.
some issues on the 4-point. So we were kind of trying to take the approach of not being able to obtain the insurance, right? Which would
Absolutely.
ultimately create a loan denial.
Yep.
So just trying to figure out some ways that we could set up those chess pieces. But that asset manager was tight.
Yeah. So, like you were saying, we were trying to satisfy insurance so that we could close too.
Right.
And with the 4-point and with the roof being bad, I said, here's my pretty please again. Can you give us maybe a price reduction so that we can have those extra funds to be able to do those repairs.
Right.
Again, came back hard pressed. No, this is the seller's not willing to do anything. So, ultimately then that's up to the buyer at this
That's right.
point. Are they willing to move forward knowing that they have to have this roof put on and knowing that it's their responsibility and the other repairs are now their responsibility
Right.
to get their loan approved.
Right.
So we did get to that point. The buyer wanted to move forward. She's very excited about this property.
Right.
And we got the repairs done. We got through the red tape of the roof with the insurance company, which was a whole nother thing.
Yep, a whole nother mess. And shout out to Big D, right? Big D has kind of been there through a lot of our transactions, this one especially, to give us all of the pertinent information that we needed to get what we would call a push on the insurance policy. So the insurance company would go ahead and write our policy and bind it and give us a 30-day push to get that new roof on. So
Yep. And Big D is the one to help us with that. And so we're moving forward. We're getting to the finish line. We have everything. We have all our ducks in a row, and we're getting really excited. And then, you know, the closing day, we get to the closing day, and this is where like the it starts to happen.
Here
like,
comes the
gosh.
show.
Yeah. You want to?
Yeah, I'll take it over from here.
Yeah,
So Victoria
sure,
reached
yeah.
out to me and was kind of like, what do I do? I'm here at the property. The closing had already been scheduled to mobile notary to be here
we went for the final walkthrough.
Right.
So, you know, for those of you who don't know, when you're under contract with a house, and per the contract, it states that the buyer has a right to a final walkthrough inspection, either the day before or the day of closing.
That's right.
So, you know, we went the day of closing before we were going to meet the mobile notary, and we get there, and
there's no lockbox.
There's no lockbox, no key, and I could not get a hold of anybody. I mean, I called probably about 8 people, and
on the listing agent side.
Yes,
right?
On the listing agent side, yeah. And you know, unfortunately, the one that would probably hold all the answers, she was out where she didn't have any service. So I was just back to back, my finger just pressing her number
Spamming
on my phone.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just going straight to voicemail. I'm like, one of these times she's going to be out of the woods and it's going to ring.
It's going to go through.
Yeah. So, I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out where those keys were. And then it came to the point where I was like, I guess I got to go back to the office because mobile notary is there. My buyer's heading up there. And I was like, now I need to call the big dogs and call Holly, and I got to figure this out.
So when I jumped in the mix, I too started spam calling people and just got to a space that I wasn't going to get off the phone until we had an answer. So we had come to the agreement that the listing agent had a bingle of keys, if you will. And I kind of picture it of like those janitors in like New York City where they've got like hundreds of keys on
That's
a key
what
ring.
I pictured too.
Oh, okay.
Or like,
okay.
You know, like a banker set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what like my mind was. They were saying that we've got this bingle of keys. We can go over there and we can see if we can locate the key so that the buyer can have the ability to do their final walkthrough. In the meantime, the title company, which is an out-of-state title company, sent over a message to Victoria that the seller does not allow a final walkthrough.
Yeah.
And this is where I was thinking to myself, listen, but long story short, a listing agent went over there and calls me back and he says, Holly, I don't have a key for this lock. And not for nothing, these locks are in better condition than what we would put in. So from a proper property management perspective, I feel like we're using cheapy peepee locks, and these locks that were installed in the house were not cheapy peepee locks. So he's like, I don't know who changed the locks, but these definitely aren't ours, and I don't have a key. So because he did have legal access to the property, he was able to get in the property and make it happen so that he could leave it unlocked for the buyer to do their walkthrough. Yep. But in the meantime, buyer was already headed here to the office. We had mobile notaries to satisfy, and we came up with the solution that buyer would sign docs, right? And then we were going to hold the package, I'm going to say ransom, until we had a satisfactory walkthrough, right? So we couldn't figure out who changed the locks, but we were kind of moving past that, right? We closed, buyer signed. I went over to Lowe's, purchased the new deadbolt just because I felt like there was some things. And buyer went in and changed the deadbolt, and that was Friday late afternoon. And she was super excited over the weekend to kind of start cleaning and, you know, kind of get some things set up. She was going to start painting, and she had some really great ideas. Trees were going to be taken down, you know, just the things that you do when
her roof is going to be put on.
Right. She had all kinds of like balls in motion. if you will. So then Saturday morning rolls around at about 8 o'clock. I had just started sipping on my cup of coffee. I was watching some Sports Center, looking forward to the World Series. And she calls me and says that she's at the house and that a handyman had been there and had changed all the locks per the direction of the current owner of the property. So when she called me, she was kind of like, what do I say? So she put me on speakerphone and I advised, said, handyman, I don't really know where you're coming, in this claim of this person having ownership, but yeah, no, that's not the case. And
Right.
ultimately you're trespassing at this point. She did close on the property and she is the rightful owner. So this handyman proceeds to tell me that the owner has shown him a warranty deed and that the property is in her name. And first, my spidey senses started tingling when he said that because I thought, I've seen a lot of contractors in a lot of different capacities, and not one time have I heard them say, hey, can you show me proof of ownership? Have you?
No, and especially a handyman. Absolutely not.
Yeah, even when you call like an HVAC company, they don't say like, hey, can you show me proof of ownership so I can take a look at this unit? I feel like it's just a thing, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first like, that's weird. Why would a handyman have knowledge of a warranty deed? So when I kind of continued to push, I said, how about this? Give me the phone number so that I can reach out to this individual that is making claim of ownership and I can have a conversation. And it was during this time that my heart of hearts felt like she had paid Joe Schmo X amount of dollars and he promised her that, the property and here's a warranty deed. And just go ahead and go over there and change the locks.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I thought was the conversation, as you kind of write the narrative in your head, that's exactly what I was putting down.
We're trying to be our own detectives and put the puzzle pieces together and figure this mess out.
Right. 100%.
Not to mention, but this buyer it's a first time home buyer too. So, it's kind of taken some of that excitement away.
100%.
I feel like. So I have a lot of empathy for her in this situation.
Me too.
As well, moving forward, and I hope that we can.
Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty though. The cops are about to pull up here in just a second.
Whoop, whoop.
So, after I reached out to said rightful owner, or so she thinks, and I introduced myself and I, kind of punted the ball in her court and I was like, tell me what's going on. Tell me, what makes you think that you're the owner of this property? And she said, well, I have a warranty deed that was filed on September the 24th. And I said, okay. And I said, and how do you think you obtained said warranty deed? And she said that she went down to the clerk of the court and she recorded it. And it was based on, what they advised her to do. She did file for property abandonment and is making claim to the property in that light. And I was like, well, that's not how this works. That's not really how this works. This property was in foreclosure. They were the rightful owner of the property, and then they sold the property to the new buyer, and she is now the rightful owner of the property. So she went through all of the correct channels to obtain title. We do have a title insurance policy, and we close on Friday. So I don't know, what kind of undermined way you're trying to make a claim here, but I'm here to tell you that's not how it works.
And I don't think Penny Mac would be very happy either.
Yeah, definitely not. Penny Mac is definitely not doing cartwheels over this situation. Well, listen, girl got mad. Like she starts yelling and screaming at me that I don't know who I am and that anybody that's on the property is going to be arrested. Well, in the meantime, the handyman is plastering no trespassing signs over every port of entry of the house, saying that we're going to be fined $10,000 and arrested for being on the property. And I thought, who in the hell does this lady think she is? So, in the meantime, I started putting irons in the fire. She starts yelling and screaming. I told her my best advice for you is to not go away mad, but just go away. I reached out to the lender. I reached out to our title person that helps us here locally so that I could start trying to formulate like what in the hell is actually going on. Well, in the detective mode, we did find out that there was, in fact, a warranty deed that was filed on this property.
Mhm.
So the effective date of our title commitment in our file, the righteous file, I'm going to call it, was for September the 17th. The date that she filed said warranty deed was on September the 24th. So, very close in time. So this warranty deed, this lady signed from herself to herself, and it is, like I said, on the property card. She did file a UCC, which appears in the form of a lien on the property. And she does have an open lawsuit for somebody 3 owners back. So although this is fraud, and although it's a hot mess express, I was just like, well, how does somebody go down to the clerk of the court and file a fraudulent document? And how does that work? But it happened, y'all. It happened. So while she has no chain in title, while she doesn't appear anywhere to make claim to title, it's there. So it is a cloud, and something that, as of yesterday, we were still in, the thickness of it. After she threatened the arrest and the fine, I went ahead and got myself dressed and grabbed my cup of coffee and headed out the door, traveled to Bellevue and called Marion County's finest, the 5 stars, and they met me there. Before that, I stopped by the office so I could print out all of, since the birth of that property to today of ownership, so that we could present the best
proof.
Right. We know that the deputies are out there solving crimes and trying to deal with the public, and may not be 100% apprised to title work or warranty deeds, right? So I wanted to make sure that we could create that clear understanding. So I got a whole stack of paperwork. I'm driving down there. I'm feeling real good about it. The police meet me there. Great guys. Went over the documents and were able to kind of piece things together, if you will. Now, when the handyman left there after he plastered all of these signs on the points of entry, he took the keys and had the, I'm going to say, audacity to say, once you guys get this all figured out, I'll bring the keys back. So now the new buyer's locked out of her house. He took off the new lock that they have installed.
He done changed them twice.
Yep, twice.
Unbelievable.
They had their own brand new pack of Milwaukee screwdrivers for when they were changing the locks, and a pocket knife laying on the counter. He stole those and then refused to answer said phone for the police or for us. So, yeah. So ultimately, the police had to, I think we were there for probably about an hour and a half. They had to kind of try to piece these puzzle pieces together. Never in my career have I had a situation where there was an individual that was claiming ownership to a property that we just closed on.
No, and I don't think anybody that we've really talked with, this is like, new what do you call it?
New news.
New waters that we're going through.
Yeah, it was definite, and it still is crazy. But ultimately, the police indicated that big picture, the burden of proof is on her. That we had presented a better case as far as ownership of the property, and it was up to her to kind of show up, and she was stating that she has documents proving it, but refused to come to the property. So long story short, she was advised to stay out. Buyers were granted, use of the property until this was figured out on let's say a civil side. And then they left. Well, when they left, doors were still locked. Handyman was not bringing back keys. He wasn't answering the phone, a text, nothing, smoke signals, anything. So here comes some more interesting parts. So we all know Marion County is a small, right? We're growing. But also there's some, let's call it old heads. There's some where I know somebody that knows somebody kind of situation, right?
Yeah. I get that a lot around here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So we as realtors have this super cool app. It's called Forewarn. It gives us the ability to look up people by their name or their phone number.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see where they live. We can see kind of past criminal charges. We can see all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And it's there for our safety so that we're not pulling up on a property and showing something, a loan to somebody that just got released on capital murder or,
which that was one of my things too, that I actually, that's
is
why
crazy.
Forewarn is a great app for us to use.
It is.
We know what we're walking into for the most part.
It is.
When we're meeting somebody.
For the most part. So yeah, I was able to kind of pull up the Forewarn, kind of get some insight on old girl that does have some past criminal charges, and kind of formulate some things in my head. So I thought, I'm going to drive by because it's on my way back home. I'm going to drive by this address that is listed on Forewarn and kind of check some things out.
Mm-hmm.
So if y'all know, but I pulled right up in the front yard. I took pictures of the house and of the truck. Well,
when you called me and told me that you pulled up, I was like, oh gosh, here we go.
Of course she did, right?
Yeah.
So when I pulled up and took pictures and sent it to the buyer, because I wanted to see, they had mentioned that the handyman was there in a Chevy Silverado truck. And when I pulled up to the property, there was a Chevy Silverado that was silver that was there. And I thought, that's weird, right? So I was able to put two and two together that the handyman and this person that's claiming rightful ownership, if you will, to the property were one and the same. Like they were in cahoots together in this lock changing and this claim and this you're trespassing, $10,000 fine and get arrested. They were all kind of in this mess together.
In cahoots.
And this is where Victoria comes in as she's digging through the documents and taking a look at them.
Oh, I discovered when I was looking at the documents that were filed within the court, I kind of discovered that I knew somebody that was on those documents. So
as a witness, right?
As a witness. So it's kind of, that's where it comes in, where like, oh, you know somebody who knows somebody. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I know this person that's on this paperwork as a witness. So, get a little bit more digging into that situation, and it's we're still solving it, but I think we're getting a little bit closer as to figuring out the puzzle pieces and kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I think we are too. So yesterday, as you can imagine, it was pretty much all day trying to peel back these onion layers and trying to figure out next steps. So obviously we know that there's some fraudulent documents that have been recorded. There's a fraudulent lien against the property. There are some things that have happened, if you will, that are not on the up and up. So just kind of talking to the civil crimes department over at Marion County, and just formulating those next steps as far as that investigation goes. And then trying to figure out next steps on how we're going to address this cloud with title.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we spoke to title yesterday, and their response was that they weren't going to fund the file. They weren't going to disperse, that we were just going to go into a holding pattern since this ugly thing had reared its head. And that might have been okay for a minute, but buyer's rate lock is up today. So we don't really, and if you guys have been watching the news, interest rates are kind of going up despite that we thought that they were going to start seeing some decline.
So when we found out that they weren't going to close the title and fund it, then we are in the situation of the rate lock. Everybody who's under contract, you have a rate lock. It's like whatever rate that you're on is locked in for,
X amount of days.
Yeah. And that has an expiration date. And it just so happens that this expiration date for this buyer is today.
Right.
So to go from, I'm just going to throw out round numbers, to go from 5% interest rate that you're expecting and then have this issue come up, and then you have to, expire your rate and then have a new rate. What, 7.5%?
Correct.
7%?
Changes everything.
Yeah.
Right. Changes
Absolutely.
everything. So they called me late last night and I was, I explained to them yesterday afternoon that we weren't really in a space of being able to extend. And this is why we kind of went through the process, and they agreed that this was fraud and that's something that could be, let's say taken care of. But also their curative team had to look at it. They had to kind of go through their own processes to make sure this title was insurable.
Yeah.
From their lens. And this morning, I did receive a phone call that they are dispersing the file today.
Yeah.
So everything is going to be closed out, and then it's next steps, right? So after this file closes and we get a bow on the top and the owner receives her title policy, we will then be able to take this to the next step of filing a claim with the title insurance policy so that they could cure this cloud on the title.
And make it sunny again.
That's right. Make it sunny again. That's right. That's right. So, big shout out. Thank you to Marion County Sheriff's Office for digging into our situation. For our listeners out there is a resource that is available to Alachua County and Marion County residents. It's called Property Watch. We're going to go ahead and put a link to that on our website so that you guys can go there and click that Property Watch. I highly encourage you to sign up. That will show you any changes. It will alert you of anything that is happening on your property so that you can be apprised in live time. These things can happen. These things have happened. I had another realtor reach out to me, and as I was disclosing the story on Facebook, and said that she has an individual that wants to sell his house, but somebody fraudulently signed a deed. He didn't. So he's not even the rightful owner at the time.
Oh my goodness.
So I think that to have this information, I think it's a great resource. It's called Property Watch here in Marion County. And like I said, if you go to our website, we will have a link there for everyone to go and sign up. So that was our excitement over the weekend. It was a good time. We definitely learned a lot.
Yes.
Lots of growth through the process. And listen, we always like to share stories because I feel like any realtor will tell you, like, you can't even make this shit up.
No, you can't.
It's just sometimes these stories are crazy.
Yeah, it gets crazy. You learn something new with like every transaction. No one transaction is the same.
That's right.
And one might be, a walk in the park, and one might be a walk in the deep woods.
Right. Listen, I've had some transactions. I definitely lost some years of my life. There's no doubt. Yeah. There is not even a little bit of a doubt. Well, Victoria, thank you for being here with me today. Thanks for spilling the beans and getting our story out there and hopefully helping some residents of our community to get on that property watch and avoid any fraudulent claims to be filed against their property.
Yeah, and they can act quickly on it.
Right. Magnolia Homes and Land, your key, your home, our commitment.